What's good in the hood, YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here bringing you another video. Today I'm bringing you the first episode of the year of Uchuu Sentai Kyuranger. As we know already, Kyuranger is almost done, and this episode is episode 44 now. Yeah, so we are, after this episode, 4 episodes away from being done with Kyuranger. Following this, obviously, we'll be moving into Lupin Ranger versus Power Ranger, but this episode was actually really good. It was an episode that's kind of weird how it worked because it was sort of a combination of a clip show with like real big plot elements to it. So it sort of mixed and yet at the same time worked really well. And it was a really important episode for a lot of reasons. So we should get started with it. I am going to also talk towards the end a little bit about the small 15-second clip that we got for Lupin Ranger versus Power Ranger. Didn't really show anything that we hadn't already seen. The only thing that we got to see was some of the villains, which was cool, even though we saw them for maybe about a second. Again, better than nothing, and I'm sure that we'll see another promo in the next week, if not sooner. Again, we still don't know who are the actors at all yet, but that should come in time. It's a little surprising that we actually got this promo before we got like our big promo that we tend to get, because usually we get something beforehand. Doesn't matter now. We'll see what we get over time. So let's just get started. I've been talking for a bunch here already. So the episode is called Don Armage's Identity. And of course that's the big plot question that people have been asking. Who is Don Armage? People have been suspecting for quite some time something, and I'll get into that because it turns out to be a fact. But let's get into it. So the episode basically starts with us seeing the Kyurangers speaking to Minato. If you remember Minato, he was the idol from that one planet that they went to, where Don Armage ended up taking over his body and using him. And so what happens is that he's helping out, he's still supporting them or whatever, and then following this we end up seeing that Don Armage is planning to go to another planet that the Kyurangers might know of, to create problems there as well. So he's doing that. Following this, the Kyurangers we end up seeing are in the base. Spada ends up making them some porridge, that's some special 9 ingredient porridge, and out of nowhere, the Pegasus Kyotama, which if you remember is Pegason from I think episode 7 or 6. I mean, it was quite a few episodes. It was in the first 10 episodes, towards the towards episode 6 or 7, I think it was. Doesn't really matter. The point is that Pegason was brought back. For those who don't know, the reason why we haven't actually seen the Pegasus Kyotama used in the past couple episodes has less to do with them not wanting to and more to do with them not being able to, because the Pegasus piece that goes on the chest and everything actually broke shortly after the episode aired, and so they couldn't do it. They couldn't bring it back, and so they spent a lot of time trying to fix it, and so somehow they managed to, by the end of the season, get it fixed, which is good. We at least got one other episode with it, and in this case it actually made it work because of the fact that they were able to kind of do a little bit of a clip show and then also advance the plot at the same time, which is great because sometimes clip show episodes can be purely clip show episodes. This was clip show episodes with story to it, and usually there's some story, but this is real important, significant story that's major. So that's really different, and I appreciate that. So what happens is Pegasus-san ends up seeing the Kyurangers, and it's been quite some time. They're all happy to see him. This case, Spada has Pegasus on him, which is interesting, and they actually inform him about how there's the 3 new members, because at the time there was only the team of 9. Now there's Sho, Kodoro, and Tsurugi, and as far as Sho goes, he's happy about that. Tsurugi, he remembers him being this significant major person that should be dead, but somehow he's brought back to life. He was in a cold sleep. And then there was Kojiro, which he responded with saying there shouldn't be a kid on board, but the thing is that he's special, and so it seems a little bit different to him. Now, they do explain all that. They also explain their experiences traveling through the past, battling Don Armage, trying to protect the universe, and they kind of just catch him up, All that stuff is brought up. Eventually, they end up having a distress call, which tells them that they have to go to the Corvo system, which you can see Tsurugi immediately get a little freaked out by it because he knows something that they don't know. We didn't even know that this was the case until after the fact, until during this actual episode, but we'll get into that when we get later on into the actual episode. So they end up going to the Corvo system, and that is actually pretty important. Now, we actually have heard this mentioned before, if people remember it. Quite some time ago, it was mentioned. I don't remember which episode it was, but it was mentioned, this system. And the moment I heard it, I was like, that sounds familiar. I'm sure it's connected to someone. I just don't know who at the time. So they end up going there. They end up going to the specific planet, which is the only planet that exists there, which is the Verona planet. They go there. Apparently there's a consumerist ship that's there, which is actually a black one that is pretty big, and they're very curious about why it looks that way and what's going on or whatever. So what happens is that the Q Rangers end up splitting up, where Garu, Balance, and Champ end up going to evacuate the civilians, while the other 7 that are there, because Raptor and Show are still on the base, so the other 7 that are there end up going through the tunnels to go find out what's going on with the consumerist ship. So they end up going underground, and they eventually, there's like more conversations about like going over the past and different things that have happened or whatever with Pegasus. And then following this, they eventually are met by Dr. Anton and his proto-champ, which he basically explains their whole purpose of being there and how he's using Dark Planetium. Now, you maybe think to yourself, what is Dark Planetium? Basically, the big difference between Dark Planetium and regular Planetium is the fact that Dark Planetium is a more powerful, more volatile version, meaning that, you know, typically when it comes to the Planetium, when it comes to like Planetium bombs, you typically have to have a lot of Planetium to actually create like a real bomb that can explode and do a lot of damage. In this case, Dark Planetium is something that you can use a little bit of Planetium and it could lead to a real big explosion. So in other words, they're trying to get as much as they can from this one area as possible that has all this Planetium on it, which isn't a whole lot, but it's something. Now, one other thing I forgot to mention, this is small, but actually really important, is that they mentioned how this was the system where Kiervo and Tsurugi met each other. Apparently, Kiervo was trying to find ways to escape. Kiervo was not ever able to figure it out, and so his plan was seen as a good plan by Tsurugi, but Tsurugi says, look, we're going to make this work. And so when they try to escape, they're initially attacked by some Endeavors or whatever, but Tsurugi doesn't give up, doesn't say like, oh, we lost. No, he transforms into Ho-Oh Soldier and fights back and lets them escape. So that eventually leads to them being seen as friends or whatever, but even Pegasus-san basically says, are you sure that you were really seen as friends? We'll get into what that really means later on, but it's pretty interesting because you can already tell right away that there's something going on there. Why would he say this? And yeah, they kind of give you that foreshadowing of something that will come of it in the future. So anyway, what does happen from here is they have to deal with Dr. Anton. He explains the Dark Planetium. Eventually, a new Death Worm summon. This is not the typical Death Worm. This is a boss worm. This boss worm is a little bit different looking, a lot more powerful, obviously, and they end up having to go out of the tunnels, fight it, and Pegasus-san wants to see them with their upgrades, because they say that they've grown and they've evolved and everything, but he wants to see what that really means. So at that point, each one of them basically shows their new form. So Lucky uses Shishi Red Orion mode. Stinger uses his like arm attachment that he got from the movie. Spada uses Pegasus-san as part of his costume, which is cool. Hammy uses the solar mode, which has been used a whole bunch by Lucky, but this time we get to see it by Hammy, which is cool because no one so far had been seen using it except for him, and same with Pegasus-san. So in this case, it shows that this time around they're not limiting it to just one ranger. You maybe think to yourself, why is that even important? If you remember Zyuohger, if you watched that season, they had multiple modes for drew Red, which led to only Red getting to use any additional modes, as opposed to the others, which didn't get to do it. So it was kind of nice this time around that others were able to do it. They made it so that others could do it. So I appreciate that factor. So that happens. Naga uses Hibitsukai Metal, and I'm trying to think now. Kotaro uses his Ursa Major form, which he doesn't always use, but is definitely his, upgraded form, in other words. So, everyone has something going on. They eventually end up having to fight the Boss Worm and the Proto Champ, I believe. And eventually, Tsurugi's feeling pain. Tsurugi's involved. He obviously doesn't have an upgrade form, but he still shows his strength and power in battle. But he gets hurt. As we've seen several times, he has these moments where he looks like he's in pain or there's something wrong with him. He ends up being knocked away and put into a clump of dirt or something like that, and he stays there. In the meantime, the others fight, and they eventually end up destroying the Boss Worm. At that point, what happens is that the Boss Worm turns giant, and the Kyurangers all get together, including the three that were missing, which were Champ, Garu, and Balance return, and they basically say that they've got the civilians away, and they're told by, I think, Hammy to go and bring the to go and put Tsurugi back on the ship and take care of him. Now, one tiny thing I just wanted to bring up, this was a small thing. Hammy also had this moment in the episode where she ended up going to the lunar mode, which was kind of weird. It was kind of funny, but also strange how they did it, which was they were trying to make her out like she was this adult woman and was trying to be all sexy and everything, and it was definitely a bit weird, but it was fine. It was funny to an extent, and with the lunar mode, it was definitely different because the solar mode didn't work, so they tried the lunar mode. So anyway, all that happens. I want to bring that up, just a small detail. I'm sure someone will wonder about that. Yes, that does happen. Following this, they end up using the Super Kirano, and that works out pretty well against the Boss Worm, and eventually they're about to take out the Consumer ship, when suddenly the Consumer ship blasts them away, beating up the Super Kirano. It doesn't destroy it, but just beats to the point that they get pulled out of it. And at that point, they're met by this hooded figure, which we, for the longest time we've been assuming, okay, it's Don Armage, right? So what we find out is the identity of Don Armage. This has been the question that we've been asking probably since the first episode. Who is this figure going to be? Who is this cloaked guy? We've been wanting to know this since episode 1 now, and now we're in episode 44. We were wondering what's going on here. Well, from what we can tell, at least, the one that they are seeing is someone else who Tsurugi knew already. He didn't say anything. We didn't get to actually see it before now. This was us getting to know it, and everyone else that isn't Tsurugi getting to know who it is. And that is Kiervo. Kiervo, for those who don't remember, was his friend. So that was pretty interesting to see. So Kiervo actually, we actually get to learn how he's still alive, because we thought he was dead, obviously. And the thing is that when Don Armage was destroyed back then, when Kiervo was trying to protect Tsurugi in the past, Kiervo got killed, but then Don Armage also got killed, sort of, except he had some element of his existence around, which led to him being able to bring his, energy or his essence into Kiervo, because it was the only living body that was in the air. It was the only body that existed. Not that it was living, it was dead. It was the only body that existed, basically meaning that, what was the only thing he could cling to was that. So he basically took over that body, and he changed his form to represent himself as Don Armage and also represent Kiervo. So he gains those abilities, and he also becomes himself. So that's interesting. So we get to see that other form, which has these wings on the headpiece, and it looks like Don Armage combined with him. And for those that are wondering, it definitely makes you suspect of what will happen with Tsurugi because of his condition. So people have been suspecting that he actually might die. Yeah, that is a thought, that he actually could die. And the reason why that is because there's also been images showing a red version of Don Armage that looks like the red jacket that he always wears, and people are suspecting that might be him after his death. That like Don Armage might take over him, like they might destroy Don Armage, Tsurugi might die, and then Don Armage might go back into Tsurugi. That's a thought. So anyway, they end up meeting him. Eventually, he does retreat after revealing his identity, and they end up going. He ends up saying last minute that he is going to go to a planet that they all care about a lot. So when they end up back in the ship, they end up discussing, trying to figure out what that could be. What planet is it? They think of several planets, and the one that comes to mind immediately is Earth. And the reason why Earth is the most logical choice, and this is something that they said quite some time ago, was the fact that Earth is special. It has tons and tons of planetium. And you have to remember that they're trying to convert the planetium, Dr. Anton, into dark planetium, which can explode with little amounts. So considering the fact that Earth is planetium rich, meaning that there's lots of it, that means that it could really destroy everything. Like, with so much, that means so many explosions could result in an insane, complete obliteration of everything. And that's pretty insane. I mean, that's pretty crazy to think about. So what that leads to seeing is that the Kyurangers get ready to go into the Earth. Now, we don't get to see them land there or anything yet, but we see in the previews that they're going to get there. They're going to end up having to fight Don Armage again in his Kiervo form. We're also going to get to see Jiro, which we haven't seen him in quite some time. That's Kotaro's brother, so that's kind of nice to see. And the people are going to be up in arms and angry. And also there'll be like a new form, I think, of the prototype champ that they'll be fighting, which is interesting. And it was kind of seen early on, like in some leaked images, and people weren't sure what it was, but supposedly that might be his more powerful form, or even Dr. Anton's true form. It's really not certain right now, but we'll have to wait and see how that works out. As far as things go otherwise, we did get to also see the Lupin Ranger versus Power Ranger trailer. It looked nice. It wasn't anything like that big of a deal. I mean, it was just, the intro was nice with the night shots of like the mechas. Those were really cool. I love the night shots. What we did get to see is the villains, which I actually like the designs. They look kind of interesting. They look like they're inspired by a whole bunch of more recent seasons, which I'm cool with as far as monster designs go. And there's nothing really that new. They had great night shots. That's the thing that I liked about it the most, the night shots and the two teams confronting each other and seeing the villains. Obviously, those are all the main things that happened, but it's still good to see them. And we don't get to see the Lupin Rangers, Lupin Kaiser, so we didn't get to even see the Power Rangers, Pato Kaiser mecha yet. But I'm sure we'll see that probably in the next promo or so. I love knowing your opinions. Did you guys enjoy this episode? I personally did a lot. I thought it was really good. I'm definitely excited to see where things will go from here. One thought I even think might happen, this is just a theory, it might be completely wrong, is that maybe since they're going back to Earth, maybe Jiro will take over as Ho-Ho Soldier. Now that could be really unreal, and that probably won't happen, but it is a thought. They are going back to Earth. He is someone that knows the Kyurangers, and he's like one of the only people that would make sense to, because he is a guy, although he'd probably be a very short version of himself. But hey, I mean, Kotaro is a Kyuranger, so why not Jiro? And Jiro's even younger. Now, that might be crazy, but we'll see what happens. Who knows? It depends on if Tsurugi actually does die, and if they decide not to make another 12th member. If they decide to, could happen. If they don't, and they just say, oh, we're just going to have the 11, fine. We'll have to wait and see. I'd love to know your opinions again. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you guys think. I'll see you guys in the next video. So, guys, I'm Crazy Samurai 71, and goodbye, guys.